What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about how to decide which laptop or PC to buy for video editing. Okay, so when you want to buy a PC or a laptop for video editing, there are three basic things that you need to think about. The first one is your CPU, which is also referred to as a processor, your graphics card, which is also referred to as a GPU, and your RAM. These three items are very important when deciding which laptop or PC to buy, because video editing is a very processor and graphics intensive process. So what is a CPU? A CPU is basically the brain of the computer. So what you need for video editing, you need a PC that has 6 to 8 cores minimum for video editing HD video. I'm sure you've noticed if you've ever tried to edit like HD video on a shitty laptop or shitty PC that you've bought for like 3,000 Rand, you don't really edit properly because the machine runs slowly, and one of the main reasons is because of the cores of that laptop or PC are not enough. So what a core is basically is like an engine for the CPU. So basically each core handles a process that the computer tells it to do. So if the more cores you have, the more engines you have, and the more tasks your computer can handle at the same time. Because remember, when you're editing, you're probably editing on your editing program, whether it's Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve or whatever it is, and also you probably have Word open and you have your Internet Explorer open. So these are a lot of processes that need to be processed. That's why you need 6 to 8 cores basic for your CPU. So when you're going to a store, you're shopping online somewhere, make sure that laptop has 6 or 8 more cores. And the CPUs that I recommend that you guys buy are like, this is the lowest budget CPUs, which is like the AMD Ryzen 5. There's AMD Ryzen 7, there's the i5, the i7, but I recommend the AMD Ryzen 5 because it's the cheapest CPU with 6 cores. Obviously, just like anything else, the more money you spend on a CPU, the faster your laptop or PC is going to be. So it all depends on your budget and how much you're willing to spend. Your graphics card is like a mini engine for your computer. Basically what it does, it processes and renders 3D images as you're working and as you're editing. So you can think about it as like temporary storage for your computer. It relieves the CPU processing. So for video editing HD footage, the most basic graphics card that you need to get is a GTX 1080. There's obviously ones that are bigger than that, but the minimum for editing HD video is a GTX 1080. There's also GTX 2070, which is much more processing power and much more expensive, but those ones are more for animators and people that do 4K gaming, or people that want to edit 4K footage smoothly and like super fast. So also again, this all depends on your budget, how much you want to spend on a graphics card, but the bare minimum is a GTX 1080 graphics card. And the next thing that I spoke about at the beginning is your RAM. So your RAM is also a very important component for your laptop. For editing HD video, you need to have at least 8 gigabytes of RAM. So you can have 8, you can have 10, 12, 14, 16, all the way to 64, all the way to 128 gigs. But the basic that you have to have is 8 gigs of RAM. So if your laptop or PC has less than that, know that you're gonna struggle when it's time to edit. So make sure you have 8 gigs of RAM. So another thing to think about is if you are editing with DaVinci Resolve, you need to know that DaVinci Resolve is more GPU intensive. So for you to edit nicely and smoothly with DaVinci Resolve, you need to have a very powerful GPU. A GPU is a graphics card. So it has to be really, really, really fast. So like it has to be at least a 2080, a GTX 2070, sorry about that. Because the program is very GPU intensive in terms of, instead of CPU intensive like normal editing programs like Premiere and other stuff, and Final Cut and stuff. So just make a note. If you're using DaVinci Resolve, you need to have more GPU than CPU, because DaVinci Resolve is GPU intensive. And the fourth thing that you need to think about for your video editing PC is basically your hard drive space, your storage space. There are two types of storage for video editing. There's an HDD and there's an SSD. What I recommend is getting a laptop or a PC with an SSD. So a SSD is like a different drive from an HDD. Instead of having an HDD, which is a spinning drive, where all your data is reading and writing in a spinning drive, the computer is usually way slower when it comes to reading that information and writing that information. But with an SSD doesn't have a spinning drive. It is more like a USB. So it reads the information way quicker. Meaning when you're editing, you will edit really fast and really smoothly. So just make sure that you get an SSD, which is at least 250 gigs, so that you can edit on it. But a better thing to do is to have a laptop or a PC with the SSD on it, but then only store your programs on that SSD. And then when you edit, have your footage on an SSD external drive. That will help you edit way faster. And an example of a really fast SSD external drive is the Samsung T5, which is a little pricey and it costs about like 5,000 Rand. But I mean, if you really want that premium speed, don't edit your footage on a SSD drive on your computer. Edit on an external drive, whether it's an external drive, HDD drive, or external SSD drive. This all depends on your budget. But if you want to edit internally, just make sure you have an SSD instead of an HDD drive. You can edit with an HDD drive on your laptop or PC, but it will not be as faster as if you have an SSD drive on your laptop or PC. So these are the 4 things that you need to think about when you're planning and thinking about buying an editing laptop or PC. So I'm just gonna go through the points again. So the first thing you need to think about is you need to have a very powerful CPU, which has to have at least 6 to 8 cores. It can be an AMD Ryzen 5, which is one of the cheapest ones, but there's so many CPUs out there from Intel and other manufacturers. But make sure that the CPU has 6 to 8 cores. Then your RAM has to be at least 8 gigs to be able to edit HD video, okay? And then the next thing is you need to have a graphics card that is at least a GTX 1080 graphics card to be able to process HD video. And the last thing that is optional, you can either edit, I mean, it's not optional, you have to have a drive on your laptop or PC, come on. But is to edit your video, have a laptop that has an SSD drive. Or if you strap for cash, you can edit on a laptop with an HDD drive. So it all depends on your budget. And like I said, there's so many manufacturers for all these different items. You need to decide what your budget is and what you can handle. That's how you decide how to buy an editing laptop or PC. If you like this video, please drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Let me know what laptop you use, and let me know what other questions you have. And this has been a video brought to you by Gear Vault. Oh, and just before I finish, just to paint a clearer picture, just so that you know, a basic editing PC for video in South Africa costs about 12K going up. So if it's a PC, it might be cheaper. It can cost you like 12K, but if it's a laptop, it'll probably start at like 15,000 Rand. So if you're planning to buy a PC or editing laptop, just budget that amount from 12,000 to 15K. And obviously, the more stuff you want, it goes all the way up to like 100 grand. So these are the things you need to think about. Until next time, peace.